welcome to my channel. This is Diane Dobson Barton, and I appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, I would love a like and subscribe if you find this video to be entertaining or informative. That would be wonderful. It tells YouTube that you're watching the video and you're getting something out of it, and that helps my standing with the algorithm. I'm using oil pastel here in a sketchbook, and I'll leave the link below for the items that I'm using, the materials. I decided to do clouds because my family has this thing where if we see interesting cloud forms, we'll send them to each other on our group chat. So I thought this would be a great time to put some of those photos to use. I'm using I started with a darker gray, a neutral gray, to mark in sort of where the clouds were going to go. And then I'm building it up with a medium tone and the white. It was warm this day. I am in Kansas, and it was probably in the 80s in the house. So my Paul Rubens oil pastels were a little softer than usual, particularly the white. So I had to be careful of where I placed, because it would go on really thicker than I wanted at that point in the pastel painting. And I've got this taped off here with some washi tape that I needed to use up instead of a painter's tape. And I think I prefer the painter's tape. It has a stronger contrast to work with. It looks better. So I've sped up this video to save time and just make the viewing easier. There are a few areas in here where there is a sky blue peeking through. I do have a reference photo that I'm using. It's on an iPad. You can sort of see the edge of the iPad up there on the upper left-hand side. And I'm wearing black gloves this time. Usually I wear clear gloves. They're not as noticeable, but a friend gave me some black ones to use, and they're easier to take on and off. The size is a little better. So today I'm wearing black gloves. I like to wear gloves because it protects my skin from the pigments that are in the pastels and reduces any chance of any exposure to something that might not be too healthy. And here I'm pulling out some pastels from another set. I don't know if they're Sennelier, or I believe they are, which were really, really soft. They start out at room temperature, normal room temperature. They'll start out at like a consistency of like a lipstick, and with it being warm in Kansas, this was really, really soft. And I'm doing this very gently on the surface. You can see there where the lines are showing up much more than they were before. But it was what I thought was the best way to get that lighter bluish gray color without overpowering the color that I was using with the stick. So I go in here and I'm blending the colors together. I'm not using a blending stump. I'm using the pastels themselves. This is a pretty simple composition, and being clouds, it can be abstracted. It doesn't have to have minute details exactly the way that the photo may be. So it gives me a little bit of freedom here. And you'll notice too, as you're watching, I'm going to cut out some chunks of this video because there's a lot of repeat information as far as going back and forth with the lights and the darks to get the values that I need to form the shapes of these clouds. Clouds are something really good to do if you want to do something that's loose and more of a monochromatic. You can put the yellows and the golds in the clouds if you want to, but in this particular one it was pretty much all blues and grays and very simple colors, which made it a nice, just relaxing project to do. I did need to make sure that I went back over on the white parts where I wanted it pristine white, and at the end I go back in and just put little dabs where I want those. And the same for the darker grays, because over the course of doing the piece, I blended out some of those darker grays to make the medium tones, and it helped give that stronger contrast. And right here it looks like there is equal sky peeking through on the central area and on the right hand side and then the upper left, and there's not. So I need to make that blue tone in the center and more toward the bottom. I need to make it lighter and a little bit different than the sky that I do actually want peeking through on the right hand side, and that little V at the upper left hand corner. I really like using these Paul Rubens pastels. They're priced reasonably, they have a nice color selection, and I've tried several different brands, and for the money I prefer using these Paul Rubens. And I haven't checked the prices here lately, but the set that I'm using that is in a wooden case was like $50, I think, for the entire set. And it's a pretty good size set. The wood case is kind of, it's not the greatest, but it definitely is much better than getting it in a cardboard box. It will last a lot longer. Not that I've had much problem with the cardboard boxes that most pastels come in, because they're usually heavier, but I liked having this being wood. And you can see me here just kind of freshening up some of those blue areas. And I didn't want it to be a blue that was too strong. I needed it to be a specific shade, and I didn't have the shade that was in my mind among the sticks, so I do some blending with the blues to try and get that in there. Usually I'll tape off this other page, the page on the left hand side. That's why there's a piece of paper there and a couple of pieces of washi. It just protects that page on the other side if I decide to use it for another piece, or I think in this case there's painting on the other side, the flip side of it. And I've been preferring to keep the backs of the pieces plain. If I ever use these in a publication of any type, when you scan them, it makes them scan cleaner if there's nothing on the back side of the paper. Mostly what I'm using here is sort of a light periwinkle blue, some cool grays, and a white. You see here these ones that I've got sitting on the top of the box. That's primarily what I use for the entire piece. There's I think 1, 2, maybe 3 blues, lighter blues, and maybe 2, yeah, I see two lighter grays. What I considered my darker gray value was still fairly light. And here I'm just fine-tuning some of those darker areas, because I want there to be good contrast. And just a reminder, if you haven't subscribed yet, it would be great if you could do that. I have a goal for this quarter of how many more subscribers I want to get, and if you could help me get closer to it, that'd be great. Share it with a friend, post it on social media, however you think people might benefit from it. See, I can take these off much easier than the clear ones. They're just a little bit heavier. And here I'm taking off the washi tape. I love that part of it, or it's just a nice crisp edge there. And one thing to note that I failed to mention earlier, when you're doing some sort of skyscape, be aware of the value of the sky itself, because if you'll stand outside and look on a clear day, the blue above you is going to be darker than the blue at the horizon. It's just the way the atmosphere works. But I didn't have to worry about that too much on this one because it is just a detail of clouds themselves, more or less. But it was in the back of my mind when I was dealing with the blue peeking through. I just thought I would mention it, particularly if you're new to doing landscapes or skies of any kind. Also, I will take a piece of wax paper or a clean sheet of paper over this once I'm completely done, and that will protect it from smearing. I don't usually fix my oil pastels. I have, but with the ones in the sketchbooks, I usually just put something over it to protect it. And then I will date the piece and put any notes that are relevant that I think I might want to remember in the future, like maybe the brand of pastels I use, that it is an oil pastel and whatnot. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you more than I can say, and I hope you found this informative and or entertaining, and I will see you next time. Take care and bye-bye.